Hey, what's going on, good people, man? We are back with episode 4. I told you we be going back in like we used to because the season's picking up and your boy's back. But, getting into it, as I said, episode 4 entitled Aspirations. So, we remember from everything in the previous episode, everything that went down, basically the Xenos exposing themselves, letting us know that, hey, we're here, we exist, kind of, get used to it. This is what it is. So now, in the aftermath of everything that's already happening, we see the crew, basically Bell, Haruhime Makoto, Lily Wealth, Wine, everyone basically is partying up at this point. They're celebrating. They're celebrating basically, Belle coming down, Wine being introduced and brought amongst the rest of her kind, and everything seems fine. You see a lot of varieties of beasts and creatures, unlike normal. You're seeing goblins, you're seeing lycanthropes, you're seeing all kinds of other little monsters. So as they're there drinking, Makoto and Haruhime kind of look very, I wouldn't say uncomfortable. They just don't look like they're feeling it because the creatures around them are very friendly. I think it's like a frog, some Doulahan, maybe it looks like a headless type of creature. It's not headless, but it could be like some type of magic armor type creature. And I want to say maybe um a type of lobo, type of dog or wolf creature, just handing them drinks and so on and so forth and fruit. But we move in from that. Lid's basically talking to Bel Chichi. I think that's what he's been calling him. And we're seeing that things aren't too different from how basically the humans hunt monsters as far as how they go about getting or attaining their armor and bits and pieces. Sorry, how the monsters go about attaining their armor and weaponry from basically the same way the humans attain their pieces and bits and things from monsters. Bell was just kind of curious as to how they obtain their things like that, and he then lets him know that, we've been here for quite some time, but it's exactly the same way. And sometimes we also get stuff from the guild because they've been down there and unsure if, hey, does the actual guild know about them per se, or do they not know about them 100%? And Lid does verify for us that yes, they know about us. Sometimes they send us food. They've been keeping us a secret just as much as anyone else, but they mostly obtain their weapons from foolish humans who try to come down and hunt them. Not sure whether they end them or not, but it's mostly, I guess, if you were a adventurer and you ran down there and you saw something and you ran away and you dropped it, that's exactly what's going to happen. But then he kind of lets us know also it's more so Oranos, the actual god of the guild, the patron god of the guild. So there we go. We realize, or we know who Oranos is now. I may be doing a video later just a little bit more in detail on who Oranos is, like the actual god Oranos, and how he may play a role in this coming volume, just to see if we can gauge and get some information in regards to him. So after, they basically let us know about that, he clues us into the fact that with them having that quest positioned by Ornos and his people, who we don't know exactly who his people are, I'm assuming this may be his family members, not just the actual guild. They were kind of on edge down there. So not everybody was, as gun-ho as Lid and some of the others to see how this will be, someone protecting their own kind. Because that's all we know for as the most part, that they knew someone was protecting their kind, that they'd be coming down there to get a gauge of who or what or how they may be as individuals and people. And that's when we meet the counter side of the Xenos from a gentleman. Gross. He's not really a gentleman. He looks like a gargoyle dragon type creature. He's kind of not too sure about this. Basically humans are humans. They're still going to be the same way no matter how you cut and paste it. The same way that everyone in the squad was looking at Wine, like, oh, she's a creature, she's a monster. You know how this goes. Monsters are monsters no matter how sentient you make them, no matter how civilized they may seem. At their roots and core, that's essentially who they are. And we then pan over to Hestia and Ornos having their conversation. Ornos' throne looks dope. As dark and dank as it looks behind him, I like the design of his actual chair. He's just sitting there in the one chair like a true god, because I don't believe any of the other gods all have like their own specific chair that I haven't seen. But he's explaining to her again, this is what he had planned. He wants to see, or resting upon the shoulders of Bell and the others, is this whole bridged, the best way to put it's like a bridged mutual understanding, or a melding of the two, kind of people and the Xenos, the sentient creatures and the humans, because as it stands now, Xenos are one outcast by sentient life, meaning humans or anything that's bipedal or walks and or talks like a normal person, and they're also cast out by the more feral creatures as well. So they're attacked on both sides. It doesn't really matter how you slice it. So they're trying to find this meeting ground because all they want to do is interact with the people and be accepted for the most part, from what I'm understanding. And Hestia still having her reservations regarding Oranos using her family to basically be the pivotal point of this execution or plan that he has going on. She's still rejecting it through and through. But then we cut over to actually seeing Hermes with baby girl who, she's still fine too, the elf chick. His right hand, the maid, I think the cafe shop elf. She was basically tailing Belle and everyone else, just keeping eyes on them, and was discovered also by another group of individuals, or more so, the individuals was discovered by her. In regards to Hermes, we learn of a new character named Dix from a different familia. Apparently he, in the last couple of years, has already reached level 4, which is an achievement. That means he is a threat as far as adventurers go. He is no hoe, he is no joke. He is probably one not to be trifled with. In the way they introduced him, I think he will be probably it's in the credits. You can kind of see it in the OP. He's somebody that probably Bill is gonna have to face down at some point. But we learn about what his group is apparently doing down in the dungeons. They're actually smuggling monsters out, and that's against the rules by every sense of the meaning. It can't be done. If found out by the guild, they will probably be one barred, and there may be some other consequences that may fall from that. And while they're discussing that, Hermes lets baby girl know she needs to keep an eye on the middle floors because things are probably going to be cooking up and getting wild here in the coming times. And as we get back down into the whole Xenos area, and with everyone else down there, Oranos is telling Hestia, she asks if there's anyone else who knows, in addition to the guild and Hermes, apparently, because I believe he was the one who had to deliver the letter. I'm probably mistaken. Please do not crucify me. But they know about it, and he also let her know that, Mr. Hype Man himself, Ganesh, he knew about it. You know what I'm saying? Ganesh is, as much as I had a distaste for Ganesh when I first originally saw him, dude is actually funny. He is comedic relief anytime I get to see him on the screen, because he's gonna be boisterous, he's completely counter opposite of everything that you would know, or in realistic terms, about the god Ganesh. And that's what always makes me laugh, because he's just the life of the party, and he's his own life of the party. He needs no one to hype him up. He will hype himself till infinity and beyond. But he lets her know that he's been working with Ganesh as far as his reconciliation between humans and creatures plans go. So the fights that Ganesh holds in his arena are at Oranos' discretion, more so a ploy to show the upper worlds, the humans, as how he relays it, how gods want to be closer to their creations, being the humans. How are they not also in response how we put it? How are they not also in responsible for the creations that do become sentient themselves? Would they not also be their children? So they want to find that ground, and that's kind of where we're still moving forward with that. And the creature from the very introduction of going into the lower levels, who basically delivered the letter to Hestia, has finally been revealed. That is Fels the Fool. Fels in a previous life was known as the Great Sage, a mage user who was obsessed with eternal life and created the Philosopher's Stone and found a way to live forever. But as he puts it, he was, yes, obsessed in his life with having eternal youth, thusly finding a way to live forever. But in his finding a way to live forever, instead of actually living and still being human, he became a living ghost. So the Philosopher's Stone, pretty much equivalent exchange, just how you normally see it in any other adaptation to Full Metal Alchemist. You can't gain something without giving something. So for his eternal life, he was, stripped of his actual physical features. He's kind of more or less a walking skeleton. And at Oranos' side, he basically monitors the changes and fluctuations of time. And from learning just about who Thel was, he then lets us know that he 15 years ago made contact with the Xenos, or a lid basically first, and then naming the Xenos and providing them with shelter and, giving them basically a home and creating the place that they live now, letting us know that this is not just the only living space. There are several spaces like this throughout the dungeon, more so a place not where Xenos are born, but it's a safe haven for them, a home for them, and this is their community. And we then go on to discover something that I find may play a big key role into learning more about the Xenos as the story goes along. It was when Wene was telling Belle about a dream she had previously, more so describing how she felt like as though she had this hole in her chest and this cold feeling, as she was describing basically what sounded like someone dying, someone passing along. And it's these memories, and they're very vivid. And it's something when Lyd also has this conversation regarding he would like to see the red ball in the sky set behind the mountains. More so, he's talking about a sunset. And Wolf asks him, has he ever been to the surface before? He then, also says no, but he believes that maybe in his previous life that he, may had seen the sunset. And I want to call her the leader of the actual sylphs or the harpies. She also has a desire to spread her wings in the sunlight and actually fly around in the surface above. So what that makes me believe is maybe, now just maybe, some of the souls of individuals who die within the dungeon are then kept within the dungeon, because we know the dungeon itself is magic of some kind, and it may play some type of weird game of sorts in creating creatures and taking things and making new life. Maybe not. Just what if, and this is just me speculating, what if, again, folks who die within the dungeon, at some point their souls are captured and randomly at moments when newer creatures are being born, because the Xenos are somehow made within the dungeon. They're created just that way. Their souls of a previous living person being put inside of a newer creature, because as they explain, there are two types of Xenos. There are, as far as Xenos who can communicate quickly and those who can't. They're all still sentient, they understand, but there are those who can speak English and those who can't. And those who speak English, or more so just regular English, they pick up on it and learn pretty fast, as though it was already a native language to them, or they have some type of attached memory to it, as so they can pick it up just a lot faster. So I find that very interesting, and we still don't know yet, but I'm just keeping that as a mental note moving forward. There may be something more to it than this. And the Xenos consider the actual dungeon itself more like a mom to them, because not only did it allow them to live there, but I do believe at some point the dungeon is responsible for giving them life, because none of the gods have, basically come outright and said they're creating creatures like this. The only god we saw originally from the first season would be Freya, who was more so manipulating the Minotaur, and she gave him a weapon, if I'm not mistaken, that Minotaur weapon, and it went ballistic, but that wasn't truly making it a Xenos. I think it was more so just a creature who learned how to actually properly use a weapon and fight to the best of its animalistic and primal instincts. And after explaining that bit, we're transitioning back to, again, Ornos and Hestia, and Hestia's asking, she's still trying to get basically to the point of her last question. Does he pretty much know how the monsters or the Xenos are being born? And he breaks it down to her saying, the cycle of life and death for our children, the humans, how they go up to the heavens and are brought back down to the earth. Well, the monsters are born into the dungeon. Now, he does hint at, he kind of almost debunks my theory, or what I had my nose pointed towards, more so as far as the thing I just explained with the spirits of people somehow being trapped in the dungeon and being reincarnated. But this is what Ornos says. Ornos basically says that their life cycle and death cycle all continue within the dungeon. So maybe over a span of time, that during those lives, those rebirths and deaths, maybe it's those thoughts that are being transitioned as they're being born and recreated over centuries at a time, or maybe it's just the will of the actual labyrinth itself. Now, that could debunk basically my entire thing, but I'm still gonna keep to the fact that I think maybe there's something to it more than just hey. Because and why I say this is because Lid's actual his vision makes no sense. It would make no sense to a creature who'd never been to the top of the world to have such a vivid memory of a sunset. Only if it had been a human spirit by chance, or some portion of a human's memory or longing or aspirational desires that had been absorbed into the dungeon at the time of death alongside the creature or within a creature who may have died, and then being brought back to life, that be possible. So I don't think it's necessarily a whole thing about maybe it's just the will of the actual dungeon. No, I think there's some key factors into what brings about the birth of Xenos, because man, those vivid memories, at least just of Lid and Wine, make no sense whatsoever at all. And then we get back to our squad having their hurrahs and goodbyes, and Lid telling Bell, in light of meeting us, in light of knowing us, please do not fear killing monsters, or don't hesitate to kill monsters, because just as you hunt and are hunted, we are the exact same way. We kill monsters to, one, grow their power. So they eat the stones that hunters, people who go in the dungeon collect to grow their power, which I find to be amazing. I'd love to see if they do actually end up in some familia, how their actual abilities and leveling and scaling and skills, like what they stack up to compared to a average adventurer. That'd be pretty interesting to see. We may or may not see that. I do, however, have high hopes that Wine will probably join the Hestia familia once they found a way to get everybody back on the surface, or actually get these ley lines of communication and understanding between the creatures and the humans, more so not as freaking rocky as they are now currently. So as Belle and everyone return back to the surface and they're meeting up with Hestia's, she looks downtrodden, and the crew looks also they look wearisome, and like they just had to separate from Wine. Belle, let out the big brother, we will meet again kind of thing, as Wine was crying and yelling, crying out for Belle. Basically, she didn't want to separate from them, and Lid had to let them know, like, the suffering that you went through, next time that won't be just on you, they'll put that on Belle, and you don't want to see any of them hurt in the exact same way. And past that, Belle's asking Hestia, what is the dungeon? Like, what is it? And these are good questions. What is the dungeon? She just says the dungeon is the dungeon. So even the gods don't essentially know 100% what the dungeon is, or there may be some god or deity who knows more about the dungeon and its creation and how its inner mechanics work. But we get back to seeing Wine with the rest of the crew and her new kin, and they're getting ready to move to a new location because they chronically have to be moving, and so they're not caught off guard or put in situations to where they could potentially be hunted or anything like that. And we're introduced to a newer kin. Her name is Ronnie. She looks like a arachnid type of creature, more like if you've ever seen Monster Girls, Arachne, or if you ever watched Digimon or Arochinimon type of creature. She's more human torso and arachnid bottom and legs, and she seems to be leading these troops. Like, she's probably one of the more veteran monsters alongside Gross and Lid, and she's basically, you can tell she's been through some things with humans. Like, they have rubbed her the wrong way, or she's been through a lot. She may have let her guard down once or twice in the past, and it more or less came back to bite her in the thorax, and she's scarred by that, because she's saying, you should forget those types of memories, saying like she remembered the food, and she remembers Makoto, and everyone saying like, you should forget that. You don't know the cunning and wiles of basic, humans and things like that. And so she's like, you should just cast that away, because it could only either do one or two things. You'll either get hurt or you'll be led astray. And I'm assuming that's exactly what's happened to her. So as they're making their way down, Wine starts to hear something with her heightened, sense of ears, and it sounds like somebody's in pain, one of their kin, and she's starting to wince over because it's really starting to hurt her ears. And as they make their way down, they're starting to discover like they're gonna move in to hopefully rescue a new kin or save someone who may already be in danger. And as they get further in, they're discovering, okay, there really is somebody, and it sounds bad. And Ronnie, she can't just not go in. She's yelling to girls saying, hey, we may have found someone, there may be a kin we're gonna rescue. And Gross is like, no, it could be a trap. And lo and behold, they get in and see one of the siren girls that we saw in the beginning. She's been tortured, cut, chained up, and this was an elaborate, trap by Dix himself. Basically, he didn't really think that they come. He assumes they're still monsters. Just, a monster wouldn't care much about a monster, but he lured other monsters in, saying a siren would have been the best bet. And lo and behold, there they are. And with them seeing that, man, our boy Ord, he sacrificed. He went out like a G, man. He was one of the creatures. The guy who I thought was the Dullahan. He looked like some type of knighted creature. He was the one giving Makoto and Harbor, he made the actual drinks and the fruit in the beginning. And man, they sliced my boy up. And so RIP to Ord. May his soul rest in the dungeon, and he be brought back as a more sentient beast, thriving and striving on these folks. And it's about to get good, because they're about to, Dix is like, it's hunting time. So they're either going to try and capture the whole squad, or the kin, not the squad. They're either going to try and capture the kin, and we don't know who's going to be able to rescue them, or if at anything may be found out, coming from the bottom of wherever they are in the dungeon, how deep down, how fast that'll travel up to Bell. Because if anything does happen, we know Bell's going in. The Argonauts better be unleashed. Somebody's ass is about to get handed to him. But yo, guys, it feels good to be back, man. I'm glad to be recording. Your boy's gonna be, hopefully keeping up with this and doing some other things along the way. So y'all be on the lookout. If you like this, man, go hit the like button. Go ahead and tap that thing one time, share it. I ain't worried about you giving it a thumbs down. You don't like it, you ain't got to say nothing. Comment, man. Share it with your folks. Be here, be present. I appreciate anybody that's listening, man. You be blessed, be good, and I'll holler at y'all on the next one. Peace.